Okay, sorry for the delay, people. We're about to kick this off. It's a bit impromptu, sort of on the fly, so bear with us, please. And the things we want to cover today are how site runners get hunted. So, sort of, you've been warned about, if you've done the Wormhole class, checking your D-scan, etc., to make sure nobody's coming after you. We're going to show you just how easy it would be for people to come after you. And that might make you a bit more aware of how urgent it is to keep spamming the D-scan. We also hope to do some introduction to bubbles, since you might see those in WSpace. And finally, we'll show you how to close a wormhole. Okay, to start this off, I assume everyone's got a overview set up with the standard PvP. What we're going to start with is I'll show you how to set up a D-scan to hunt people. So if you could open your overview settings once you're on the PvP tab, and go to Filter and Types under Celestial. We need to add cargo container, planet, secure cargo container, sun, wormhole, and wreck. Under deployable, we need to add mobile warp disruptor. So you can add biomass if you're after the corpses afterwards. Under drone, just right-click the folder and select all. And under under structure, add control tower. Now, if you switch to the Appearance tab, one of the things is in Wormhole space, if anybody shows up on grid with you, you need to know that immediately. So for the background, on Appearance, can we set pilot has neutral standing to something bright? I personally use yellow.
I personally have them white but flashy. So it's just
basically you just want to make sure that if somebody shows up on grid with you, you can notice it instantly, and it's not after he's already locked and scrammed you. Okay, we're now going to move the fleet to the wormhole entry location. While we're doing that, we might as well also have some question and answers.
Yeah, sure. What have we got? Yes. .lan. That's a useful link for checking out systems. You can get lots of information about recent activity there. One of the ones we use a lot is Static Mapper. What that'll tell you is any recent activity, so if there's been jumps recently, if there's been sleeper or player kills, so you can see if people have been active, and it'll also tell you what the static wormhole in the system is likely to be. So you can tell once you jump into a system if it's going to have a high sec exit, a low sec exit, or a link to another wormhole. It's not always accurate, but it's accurate 9 times out of 10. Of course, it's saying there's a specific static wormhole doesn't mean that's the only wormhole. Eve Survival, that's just a useful thing for when you go to anomalies, which is combat sites. You can check out what the triggers are because you don't want to have multiple waves on top of you.
What do you usually need in a wormhole fleet to do just sleeper sites and be somewhat safe there?
Class 1 or 2 generally. A kind of Drake, something like that is fine. A decently tanked Hurricane does the job as well. If you want Class 3, you normally need a remote rep battleship fleet. a minimum of 2 people. If you've, say, got a Dominix and something which does a fair bit of damage, you can get by with 2 people. But remote repping battleship fleets are quite scalable. You can have more or less. Class 4 is generally T3s. Most people do Class 4s with, Tengus, but slightly larger remote repping battleship fleets are also fine. I think in general you need 2 remote reppers to tank a standard Class 3. Yeah, they can solo C3s. You need 2 remote reppers to... But yeah, generally 2 reppers is fine for C3, which is good if you've got a Dommy, because that can run 2 remote reppers and also 2 local reppers while still doing a fair amount of DPS. I think you need 4 reppers to safely tank a C4. As for C5s, I don't know.
And what do you need for support, like scanner frigs or salvagers and stuff?
Generally for salvaging we use either a Thrasher or a Cormorant. We usually have somebody have an alt doing that as we do the sites. Other than that, having scanning frigs around watching wormholes is handy, but not overly essential if you know the system's relatively secure.
One of the things we do is, because we live in a wormhole, if we open a new static, we won't warp to the exit wormholes in case they've not already been opened. If we did that, we'd pop them ourselves. Okay, we're a little behind schedule. There's some guys running sites for us to hunt later, but for now, if you look at this wormhole, you'll see it's an X702. If you use the show info, you'll see that it says it's beginning to decay and probably won't last another day. That's probably the most common message you'll see. I think there's another message if it's got more than 24 hours left, but this message basically means you've got more than 4 hours before this wormhole will collapse on time. It also says that it's not yet had its stability significantly disrupted by ships passing through it. And that basically means you've got more than 50% of its maximum mass left. So what we'll do now is we'll use one of the links that Lazarus posted before. I'll post that again. And this page basically shows you all the different types of wormhole, and it's got a link for the different types. So if you find X702 and click that link, you can now see that it's this wormhole would last for an entire day. It has a maximum total mass of 1 billion and a maximum mass for a single jump of 300 million. I think that basically means the biggest ship you can get through it is an Orca. But the important thing for us today is that we have 1 billion total mass before it would collapse, and because it's not yet had its stability significantly disrupted, it means that we have over half of that left. So we've got over half of 500 million. Sorry, over half a billion. The next message you would see would be at 10% of the wormhole mass. Some people claim it's 5%, but I think we've proven to ourselves that it's 10%. So at 100 million, you'd get the next message, which would be that it was at critical. At that point, it's about to collapse. You don't know how much is left, and it could collapse on you as soon as you jump through. So I would advise against jumping through any wormhole like that unless you want to collapse it. So let's all jump inside the wormhole. Wormholes, unlike gates, they have a range of 5 kilometers. And once you jump through, you still get a session timer, like you would on a gate, but there's no aggro timers. So if you were to jump through, engage in some PvP, you can always jump out again. They do also have an extra timer, which means if you were to jump out again now, you wouldn't be able to jump back the original way into the wormhole until 5 minutes after you first came through. And this is quite important because if for example, you were in the wormhole, you jumped out into high sec, saw somebody there and jumped back into the wormhole, that person outside would know that you can't jump back into high sec. You'd effectively be trapped against the wormhole. And if they jumped in and bubbled you, you're pretty much screwed at that point. Now on the directional scanner, hopefully you've used a directional scanner before, but I'll just cover it again briefly. You have a tick box to use active overview settings. If you were to pick a, say your PvP travel view, and then with that tick clicked, do a 360-degree scan at maximum range, you won't see very much. If you were to uncheck that tick box though, you then show everything. And the problem with this view is that it can get very, very cluttered, especially if there's lots of boss around the place. So if we now do a 360-degree scan on the overview setup that we configured at the start of the lesson, you should still see quite a bit, but not as much. Along with everybody here and the planets, you can see there's a bunch of wrecks out there. There's a faux boss somewhere. A faux boss is a heavy interdictor. And luckily today that's one of ours, so you don't need to be too worried. There's some drones. There's a Tengu and a Drake. So since you can see wrecks, drones, and a couple of ships, there's a good chance that there's people running sites in here. One thing I forgot to mention, and is the sort of thing you don't want to forget to do, is can everybody please bookmark the exit? We've actually found a couple of ships from people who seem to have just lost their exit and ejected from the ship and self-destructed. Not the sort of thing we want to happen to any of you today. So if we were to go into this wormhole for the first time, if you look at the planets on the overview, there are 2 of those which are outside 14 AU. 14 AU is about the range of your D-scan. So although we know what's around this local area, there's at least 2 planets around which there could be other things that we don't know about. So our first step after bookmarking the entrance is to have a poke around and see what else might be lurking in this system. To that end, can everyone warp themselves to planet 10? One big thing, do not warp yourself to 0 ever if you're inside a wormhole, unless it's to a wormhole and you plan to jump straight out. Warp to some random distance.
I usually use 70, but it doesn't really matter.
So if anybody's ever hunting Milo, warp to the planet at 70.
Why would anybody want to hunt me? I'm one of the good guys.
So from here again, there's a bunch of ships, but I believe that's just the fleet. Yep, that's everyone now on D-scan, I hope. So that was planet 10. Planet 10 has nothing. Let's see if we got anything around planet 11. So everyone, again, please warp yourself there at a random distance. Now, while you're in warp, you can keep spanning the D-scan, and you may see that there's a pause somewhere around this planet. 2 things which I forgot to cover in the overview setup is, could you please make sure that you are showing all brackets? If you click on the little arrow, down near the bottom, there should be show all brackets. Brackets are good because the way the D-scan works is it's whatever the camera's facing at. So if you show all brackets, you can see things in the distance that you might not have on your overview, but you can still point in that direction to get a D-scan over in that direction. The other thing to do is press Alt and X to show moons. Now, this planet has 2 moons, which you should see over to the right-hand side of it. If we narrow down the D-scan angle to, say, 30 or 15 degrees, and then point it at each moon in turn, try and work out which planet that pos is at, so which moon the planet is at. Has anyone not worked out which moon? You should hopefully have found that at planet 11, moon 1 is the axis for that pos. So, fortunately I scouted this earlier and that pos is dead. So we can warp to that moon again at a random distance and we shouldn't get killed by any pos guns. Obviously this is the sort of thing that you would normally do in a cloaky ship. One other thing that should be quite obvious.
Responsibility for anyone killed by pos guns.
Exactly. The other thing to check is that as we descanned towards that moon, the only thing that showed up was a pos, which means there shouldn't be any ships there unless they're also cloaky. You'll find pos control towers under structure. Some people do show force fields. Personally, I don't. Maybe I should, I don't know. I seem to do okay without. So now we know that the outer planets are secure, but we have somebody doing sites near the inner planets. So let's warp to planet 1, and again at a random distance. One thing you can do is once you know exactly where the poses are within a system, you can start warping to not just a random planet, but a random moon on that planet. The advantage of doing this is if there is a cloak in there and you decloak to pop some probes out, it might take him an extra 5-10 seconds to actually work out where you are, and you should hopefully be cloaked again before he arrives. As soon as you come out of warp, because we know these people are doing sites, the next thing to do is start your system scanner. One of the things to remember about anomalies is that any ship can show them. You don't need probes, so you can hunt without revealing yourself at all. Okay, so once your system scanner finished, you should see that there were 5 anomalies within 4 AU of our current location. That's the range of the ship scanner. What we can now do is verify whether or not the site runners around here. If you go to the directional scanner, on the range, if you put in 600 million, and again run the scan, you should see that there's nothing but as frigates. That means that the site that they've run is obviously outside 4AU. Now the next furthest away planet after 4AU is planet 8. So let's try hunting around there. Can everyone please warp themselves to planet 8 at a random distance? Oro1 is asking, can you warp to a site cloaked or is it dangerous? Generally it's not dangerous, but it is always a risk. Before now, I once warped to somebody who was salvaging, they were running the site still, and I warped to that site at 70, and I happened to land right on top of the structures, and it was a bit sort of high. For some reason, he decided to carry on doing the site anyway, even though there was a stealth bomber hunting him. We killed that guy. So, there's actually 1 wreck from this planet and a Tengu. But there's not the Drake or the mass of wrecks, so let's try a different planet. The next furthest out would be 9. So let's warp to planet 9 at random distance. And if you're checking your D-scan while in warp, you should see a massive wreck starting to appear within 4AU. So again, once you come out of warp, if you start your ship scanner again, and we have 30 seconds to wait while that finds the sites near here. While that is running, you can open the map. So one of the things about the D-scan is it will show you the direction based on where the camera is pointing. And it doesn't care if that's pointing in space or pointing in the map. So if you're looking at the system scanner, the sites will show up as the little green dots, and you can move the camera around so that you're pointing at a green dot, run your scan and see if anything shows up. Now in my scan resolved, it shows one green dot near here. And if I move the camera to point at that green dot on my scan, there's the whole bunch of wrecks, a Drake and some drones. Is everyone getting the same result? Or does anyone need a bit of help? Ratimer is saying that they're not getting any green dots. Are you at planet 9, Ratimer?
No, he says he got more dots, which is correct, because there's more sites, but there's only one close.
Yes, there should be one green dot near planet 9, near to the "you are here" arrow. And yes, if you've set a scan result filter, set it to show all to make sure that we are showing the anomaly sites. Does anyone not get it right? Yes, it's 1.6 AU. Okay, so now we know where this Drake is. We can warp to that site at some range. This is one where, I probably would pick the 70 as my warp in. And luckily we've killed everything at this site, so you don't need to worry about the sleepers if you're not cloaked. And if Milo was not in a +5 corp, he would now show up as a big yellow bar on your overview. And you can now either move into position to gank him or call for your mates.
And if you'd been in a cloaky, I would have had no idea that you were there. It would have been literally impossible for me to know.
So if you were in a part of Milo's fleet and you failed to catch the cloaky jumping into your system, you've got maybe 2 or 3 seconds to see him on D-scan when he does that. If you miss that, the next thing you'll know is when he decloaks at your site. This is why running anomalies with a high-sec exit that's open, especially in a popular area close to Drat, can be quite dangerous to do so. So what we plan to do now is do sort of a speed trial, see who could get on grid with the Tengu the quickest. And so to start this, can we all head please to the wormhole exit that I know you all bookmarked. Warp to 0. Since it's a high sec, we know it's currently clear. If anybody jumps into us, we can just jump straight out. And that's what I want you to do. If you see anybody show up, jump out. Because this is a mixed fleet, you're not allowed to engage in actual PvP. Guys, no combat scanning, that's cheating. Keep all the those probes in. I don't mind you. Actually, yeah. So for the delay, we're just clearing the second site. While we're waiting, do we want to do a quick question and answers session? Okay, guys, we have a Tengu. Lydia, what's your Tengu called? At Lazarus Rising. Your challenge now is to get on grid with Lazarus Rising as quick as possible. Go, go, go. part of the aim of this is to show you how quickly, once somebody enters the system, they could get on grid with you if you were the guy running the sites yourself. And of course, once you leave the E-UNI, you're free to use these tactics to gank whoever you want in wormhole space. But I believe you're not allowed to do it while you're part of the uni.
Okay, 4 people on overview already.
On overview?
Well, yeah, showing up on grid.
Wow.
Is there a way to choose the descan distance with AU and not with kilometers?
Unfortunately not. 1 AU is about 150 million, so you can just multiply it from that. The important ones are, though, the 600 million. If it's within 600 million and at an anomaly, there's a good chance you'll just pick it up with a ship scanner and be able to warp straight there. Obviously, if it doesn't show up within the 600 million, you know it's not at any of the planets within 4 AU. Okay, we have 5 people still at the exit wormhole. Do you guys need a few more minutes, or do you want some advice as to how to get to the Tengu? Okay, so we're trying to find Lazarus Rising. If you set your range to max, you should be able to see a Tengu called Lazarus Rising. And also if you have the angle at 360 degrees. If you then set your range to 600 million and do a scan, you'll see that the Tengu is not there. So the Tengu is not within ship scanner range of where we are at the exit. So if we try going to the inner planet, let's say planet 1, or the Sun alternatively, let's use planet 1 here. Those still at the high-sec exit, please warp to planet 1 at a random distance. So at planet 1, at a range of 600 million, we still do not see the Tengu. What we can do at this point is possibly make that a bit bigger. Let's expand it out by another 2 AU, so let's make it 900 million. At 900 million, you can see a bunch of wrecks. If you look at the overview, you see that there's a bunch of planets that are quite close. And then after 1.7 AU, there's no other planet until 5.4 AU. And 5.4 AU is below the 6 AU of our D-scan range. So because we picked these wrecks up between 4 and 6 AU, let's go to the planet that's 5.4 AU away. That's planet 8. So from this planet, let's again just double check with the 600 million AU to scan. And if you do that, you'll see that yes, we get the wrecks. That means that we are within ship scanner range. So run the ship scanner. Unlike probes, the ship scanner takes quite a while. It takes a whole 30 seconds. But if you were the guy running the site, those 30 seconds are not very long at all. Now, since we've run the ship scanner quite a few times, if you sort by distance, we're looking for sites that are within the 4 AU of our 600 million kilometre D-scan. And I only pick out one there at 2.6. If you select that one and go to the map, you should then just get one green dot. And if you do like a 30-degree angle scan with that green dot placed sort of over the "you are here" symbol, so you're looking directly at that anomaly, and scan, you again still get the wrecks. So at this point you've confirmed that he's out at that anomaly. And so at this point you can warp to that green dot, and you should then end up on grid with the Tengu. Okay, still with me at Planet 8. Do you need any more information?
Is there a way to align with such an anomaly without bookmarking it and then aligning with a bookmark?
I don't think so.
You could select warp to and then stop the ship to stop the warp and then accelerate again.
Yeah, it's just to find out the angle which I need to scan in.
One thing to remember is that the D-scan angle, and that doesn't care which way your ship is facing. That works on the camera angle. So if you swivel the camera view, like just left-click in space and swing the camera around, whatever is in the center of your screen at that point is what you're D-scanning towards.
Yeah, but how do I find the direction of the anomaly without pointing my ship at it and then looking in the axis of the ship?
What you can do is if you open up the map view, so you're looking at the system map, the trick with the camera still works in the system map. So again, you can just swivel the camera around till the green dot is in the center of the screen, and then try D-scan.
Okay, that is a lot faster than bookmarking it and moving with the ship towards it.
I think D-scan is probably one of the best skills that you can practice while playing EVE. It comes into so many uses in any aspect of the game where you're actually in space.
Also, correct me if I'm wrong there, and I misunderstood something, but D-scan is depending, or the direction, the angle of D-scan is not dependent on the direction your ship is going. It's dependent on your camera. If you were talking about something else, just ignore it.
Yeah, and I noticed, but the only way for me to look in the direction was first aligning my ship and then looking at from the axis of the ship. So the tip was to use it in map view, and then it's a lot faster, and I can go around this.
As said, Mayhem Z. Do you need any more advice? And anybody else who's not managed to get to the Tengu? Chromo is asked, can you use this to make a warp in for your buddies? If you were in a cover-up ship, once you got on grid with the Tengu, what you could then do is try and maneuver your ship towards the Tengu. This is where showing out all brackets on the overview comes in handy, because if you got in range of anything within 2 kilometers, you would decloak. Another thing to remember is that missiles will decloak you, and so don't get in the field of fire between a missile boat and the sleepers, or a sleeper and any other ship, because you may just get randomly decloaked by a missile.
Bubbles are like ways to catch people, ways to catch spaceships. You can only deploy them in 0-0 space and wormhole space, which counts as 0-0 space. There are pretty much 2 different kinds of bubbles. One kind is placed behind gates or behind the point you think that your enemy is gonna drop out of warp and get on grid. And the other one is in line with the destination of your target and the point where he warps away. How it works is pretty much, I'm saying it again, I'm not 100% sure about the numbers, but I think it's about like that. If you land on grid and a bubble is within about 100 kilometers of you when you drop out of warp, you get sucked into it if the bubble is in line between your destination, meaning where you drop out of warp, and the point where you entered warp, or if it is, how do you say in English, if it's in line with an imaginary extension of your warp line, so right behind it. That's about clear? Okay. So there are basically 3 different sizes of bubbles: small ones, medium ones, and large ones. By the way, might come handy at some point. They show on directional scan, so you can even find them on D-scan. That's kind of handy in 0-0. If you want to know if a gate is bubbled, you warp to a celestial that is within D-scan range and narrow down D-scan angle to the gate, and you can check if there's a bubble in that direction. There are Tech 1 and Tech 2 bubbles. Tech 1 bubbles have the disadvantage of taking 2 minutes to be anchored in space, which can be a pretty long time if if you want to hunt somebody. And Tech 2 bubbles, I think all of them only take 1 minute to anchor. And of course, the size of the bubbles refers to the diameter of the bubble itself. What else? Warp core stabilizers are useless, completely useless against bubbles. If you are sucked into a bubble, you are not sucked to the center of it. You will mostly stay on the edge, inside, but on the inner edge of the bubble. And you can use micro-warp drives. They work. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why micro-warp drives are used in 0-0 by nearly all ships, because there are many bubbled gates, and you want to burn out of the bubble as soon as you are out of the bubble. You hit warp and pray. Can't think of anything else. Ideas? Okay, I can go over the ships maybe. Heavy interdictor is like a moving bubble. Like a heavy interdictor has a device that creates a bubble around him if he activates it. A regular interdictor is dropping bubbles. So the bubbles of an interdictor work pretty much independently of the interdictor, while the heavy interdictor is always, the center of the bubble. The bubble is, always around him.
Quick question. How many bubbles can a kind of interdictor drop at one time?
That's a good question. I have no idea. I can't fly one yet, to be honest. I'm no expert with bubbles. My corps members just think so because I caught a few guys in W space with the first few bubbles I dropped. That's all.
Okay, thanks anyway.
Yeah, no problem. I do not have the warp disruption skill to 5, which you do need for interdictors and also for Tech 2 bubbles.
Yeah,
okay,
I think most of us went to Hicks rather than interdictors, so we don't know that much about them.
Oh, so not a lot of people don't fly them.
People who are roaming 0-0 are flying them a lot. People who are actively hunting in 0-0 always have 1 or 2 with them, because I think they are just the quickest way and the most agile way to drop bubbles and run if you want to run. And in W space, I guess most people are using heavy interdictors because gates move and gates disappear. I mean, it's not gates, it's wormholes. So, you are sitting on the gate itself, on the wormhole itself, with the heavy interdictor in W space mostly. I don't know. I'm not a heavy interdictor pilot myself. Milo or Lydia might wanna tell you about that.
Yeah, heavy interdictors are basically just very tough cruisers that can generate bubbles where they are. They're extremely useful, but fairly time-consuming to train for. You need Cruiser 5 in your chosen race, you need Science 5, you need Graviton Physics 4, Propulsion Jamming 5, and I think there's a couple of other bits and pieces. But they just throw up a bubble and are incredibly tough to kill.
Oh, okay.
Hicks are great.
And I think the bubble is about 15 kilometers diameter with a Hick.
I think it's 15 to 20 depending on your heavy interdictor skill.
And one more thing that comes to my mind is there is one way to circumvent bubbles, or circumvent being affected by bubbles, which is an interdiction nullifier module on a Tech 3 cruiser. That's pretty much all that you can use. And it works like warp stabilizers would work at a regular ship that gets regularly disrupted. Guess it's handy if you want to move your shiny Tech 3 ship through an area where you really suspect to be bubbles. But caution, it does not prevent you from being scrammed and pointed with a regular scram or point.
Okay, Lazarus has set up a bubble pole at the high sec exit. So if people could warp to the high sec from where we are now, you'll see what bubbles do if they're at your destination.
Wow, that looks cool.
If you're fighting and you have a friendly bubble or a friendly heavy interdictor pilot, you most probably want to be outside of the bubble and have your enemies inside of the bubble. Also, if your ship explodes inside of a bubble, your pod is as good as dead because you cannot warp away, you don't have a propulsion mod, and you're slow. So losing a ship inside a bubble is mostly the same as losing your pods and the ship inside a bubble.
Incidentally, this is also why if you ever do venture into nullsec, it's a good idea, if there's nobody in the system when you first jump into nullsec, motor off in a random direction over 150 kilometers and make an observation bookmark there. The idea being that when you walk back out of nullsec, you're unlikely to come onto access with the exit gate within 5 degrees of where the bubble's placed. So you should be able to warp to your bookmark and then to the gate safely. As a demonstration, if you warp to planet 8 and then back to the high sec, you would miss the bubble.
And generally in 0-0, you do not warp gate to gate at all. You always bounce and use a planet, or even better, a tactical bookmark on grid with the gate, like Frazzles said, 150, 200 off the gate, if you have one. Or you are roaming 0-0 with 2 stealth bombers and do not find the ship for half an hour. That's also happening occasionally. Then you get sloppy and you warp gate to gate.
You also tend to get quite mean to noob ships, you find. Chromoius is asking if he's outside the wormhole now and he jumps in to the wormhole, would he get stuck in that bubble? And what would happen is you would jump in, I think you're always within at least almost always within jump range of the wormhole when you jump out. And so because you're not warping to the wormhole, you're jumping through it, the drag bubble doesn't work and you would still be by the wormhole. So the answer to the question is no, if you jumped in, you would not get pulled straight into this drag bubble. And again, the important thing to remember is the 5-minute timer when jumping through a wormhole. Once you jump through it in one direction, you won't be able to jump through in that same direction for 5 minutes.
Well, there might be something to say about heavy interdictors, just that they can also fit an infinite point instead of the bubble, or instead of the bubble launcher, which is, let's say it's an improved point, it's an improved warp disruptor. It's a warp disruptor that you cannot disable by or circumvent by using warp core stabilizers, because it counts as an infinite amount of points. So if you're getting pointed by a heavy interdictor using that module, it's a high slot module, by the way, even, I don't know, 8 warp core stabilizers won't save you. And also, it can point capital ships, which a normal warp disruptor cannot.
But a Tech 3 with interdiction nullifier can go out of this.
No, he cannot. The interdiction nullifier makes you immune to non-targeted warp disruption. I think that's what it says exactly. So the infinite point is a targeted warp disruption, and therefore it still works.
And what's that module called?
You might have been trying to say that interdiction nullifier is a T3 subsystem.
Okay, I think the last thing that we wanted to go to today was how to close a wormhole. You may or may not know that TRECI lives in a wormhole with a static wormhole connecting to it. What this means is, if we tend not to run sites in home, we look for the wormhole signature that's connecting to our home system, and we explore that. And if we don't like it, what we can do is we can exceed the mass limit on that wormhole and close it. Because it's a static, a new wormhole of the same type immediately opens. So you can essentially keep re-rolling your static wormhole until you get one that you like. And those of you with probes out, you're giving some of my co-mates heart attacks here. So what we're going to do is demonstrate how to mass crash a hole. We're going to use this exit to high sec as the demonstration. As you saw before, this wormhole can not exceed 1 billion mass going through it. So if everyone can please return to high sec, we'll start closing this wormhole. The reason we're doing it this way is that I know you guys have an event in a little over an hour's time, and if we were to crash, say, our own static, it might take us quite a few V-rolls to get you another nice exit out of.
So the idea is to jump through with ships until the mass limit is reached, but how do you prevent getting stuck on the wrong side of the wormhole? Because you can't see the exact number of mass left to the wormhole, as far as I know.
No, this is where you've got to start using some math. Things that you know on this wormhole, when you get the first shrink, there are 500 million left. And when you get the critical shrink, there's only 100 million left. Now what the people of TRECI have found is that firstly, a battleship has approximately 1 million mass, a battlecruiser would have about 15 million mass. And the thing is, you can modify that mass by turning on prop mods. So a battleship with a prop mod active that actually has a mass of about 150 million, and a battlecruiser with a battleship-sized prop mod active has a signature of about 65 million. And so because you can now change how much mass the ship would have through, you can kind of tune the amount of mass that's going through the wormhole to guarantee it collapses when you want it to. Now, we're normally dealing with a 2 billion mass hole, so although we hope we won't mess this one up, it's not a wormhole that we've had much practice with. To start this off, I'm in warp to get a battleship with a prop mod fitted. And what we will do is jump that battleship back into the hole until we get first shrink, and we know there's 500 million left. And then we can make sure the wormhole is inside, so the battleship is inside the wormhole. And so when it jumps out at critical shrink, it will collapse it. When I talk about the prop mod, I'm talking about afterburners or micro warp drives. In the case of battle cruisers, you can fit a 100 nanometer afterburner without too much difficulty. You may need to offline, for example, any guns or launchers you have though. Okay, I'm now going to link in the class the ship that I'm using as my closer. For the purpose of this, I've pretty much stripped everything off it. It's basically just got a prop mod. I've got a prototype cloak, so while I'm waiting for other people to get the hole to the critical shrink, I can remain cloaked and people won't see me. And just in case anything goes wrong, I've got a probe launcher and some probes to find the new exit. Before we start this, is anybody left inside the wormhole? Okay, I'll take that as a no. So if you do the show info on the wormhole again, you should see that it's still not yet had its stability significantly disrupted. That means we've not yet hit the 50%. So what I'm going to do now is start approaching the wormhole, turn on my prop mod. If I show info on my ship at this point, my mass is now 153 million kilograms. So I'm jumping in with the prop mod active, and that's took 150 million off its mass. Now the main drawback while you're doing this is of course that 5-minute timer that I told you about. And there's a good chance that I've gone and got myself stuck inside the system with the 5-minute timer. Hopefully I talked long enough to not get it. So my session time has expired, and I'm reactivating the prop mod, so again I'm 153 million kilograms, and jumping back, and I'm not stuck, that's nice. So now I'm back in high sec, and we still have not had first shrink. At this point, if we were crashing our own hole, hopefully somebody else from the same corp would be jumping through in their battleship. So now, because of the 5-minute timer thing, I don't want to jump back into that wormhole until 5 minutes after I first did so. What we've got is Milo's going to come and hopefully jump a battleship in and out without pushing it to critical. He shouldn't do. Beidou2 asks, so it's the AB being on that inflates the mass, and yes, a battleship prop mod adds 50 million to the mass of your ship. In the past I've heard people say about plates and what have you, they add a little bit, but compared to a prop mod, they're next to nothing really.
Yeah, the prop mod alone is worth about half a battleship. MWD doesn't add any more than an afterburner does. That's all I was going to say. Okay, my Tempest is in warp. Okay, what do I want to do here? Prop on both ways? Roger. Shrink.
Okay, we just had a battleship jumping out from the wormhole into high sec, and you may have seen the animation of the wormhole shrinking. So if you all do show info on the wormhole now, you'll see that it now says this wormhole has had its stability reduced by ships passing through it, but not to a critical degree yet. We call this first shrink. Okay, so we've had first shrink, which means we are under 500 million, and we've had a battleship jump back in, and I asked Connie to jump back in without prop mod, so we can estimate that we're now somewhere below 400 million, but not below 250 million. And that difference is if the wormhole was just slightly above first shrink when the battleship jumped out, then it would now be just over 150 less from 500. So the next stage is I'm going to jump back into the wormhole. And I'm doing this with my prop mod on. And now I'm going to stay inside the wormhole until we hit critical shrink. The reason for that being is my mass when I jump out with my prop mod is 150 million. At critical shrink, there's less than 100 million left. So I know with 100% guarantee when I jump back through after critical shrink, I will collapse the wormhole. Bade02 asks, are wormhole systems on the map for jump freighters, i.e. can a wormhole corp resupply in that way? If you're inside the wormhole and you have any bookmarks from K-Space, if you look at the number of jumps it says for K-Space, it's an awfully large number. And essentially, inside a wormhole you're classed as being too far from K-Space to get there normally. We're just organising some battle cruisers with prop mods to do the next stage of the shrink. Normally we would be doing this from within our home system, crashing our static hull. This obviously means that we all have ships in that system. Meltmine2 asks, did you find the wormhole we just used from your own static wormhole or question mark? Yes, this system we use is our static for the moment. And when we saw that it was only 8 or so jumps from Aldrat with a nice small hole for the crashing bit, we just could skip the opportunity to do this class. We're now inside the wormhole. We have Lydia in a Drake. Lydia, could you please jump in and out with prop mod? Now, you should have seen that just went to critical shrink. That means there is under 100 million left. Lydia was in a Drake with prop mod, so that could be as low as 30 left. The highest case that could be is slightly under 100. Lydia, when you jump back into the wormhole, could you do so without prop, please? When the Drake jumps back inside, they'll take off approximately, I think it's 15 million for a Drake. So that would put us between 85 and about 20 or 15 or so. So now, through the powers of math, we are pretty confident that when I jump this battleship back into K-Space, the wormhole will close. And there it goes. So if this was our home system I just jumped into, we can now scan down the new wormhole that would have spawned. When you're the person who does the final jump, you'll get a little message saying the wormhole closes behind you. Are you trapped? And in this case, yes I am, because I'm in K-Space. And my home is not. So I think that concludes the main part of the class. We can do question and answers, or you can make your way back to Alzat to prepare for your figure event later tonight.